Next up is one of my very best friends and state representative for the new House District 136 in Williamson County, Tony Dale.
All right, so I'm going to do something I don't usually do today. I'm actually going to read a speech because I want to communicate a few things, but I usually, just talk with bullet points and I try and throw in funny stories. So I guess I'll kind of start like that. But my name's Tony Dale. I'm honored to be the state representative from the southwest corner of Williamson County. Lifelong Republican and the proud father of Maggie Dale, who's our page over here in the corner. And we got another daughter, Isabella. My wife, Mary, and I have been married for over 20 years. So we met in the Army, and we were stationed at Fort Hood and just loved Texas so much we decided to make it our home. And it's amazing after all these years here in Williamson County to think that I certainly know there's people that have been here longer than I have. We got here in 2001, but to have started with about 225,000 people in the county and now we're at 500,000. And I tell people that I used to drive on a dirt road to get to HEB, and that was from Avery Ranch, and it's now Avery Ranch Boulevard, and there were dirt roads all over the place in my part of the county, and people look at me like, really? They can't believe it, but that wasn't that long ago. So we've been through a lot of changes. When this House seat was created and opened up, I didn't intend to run for it, but I'm very pleased and honored to be representing you in the House of Representatives. So you go down before you get sworn into what they call freshman orientation, and I can't remember who told me this, one of the other members. They said, okay, to a group of us, they said, the first time you walk out on that House floor, you're going to look up at the ceiling and you're going to look around and you're just going to say, how did I get here? And after about 2 weeks of meeting your fellow members, you're going to look around and you're going to say, how did they get here? So it is truly the Texas House of Representatives. There is somebody for everybody in those 150 members. Now, they may not be your rep, and you may not like your rep, but you're going to find somebody you like in there. I guarantee you, boy. It's an interesting place. Fortunately, we've got it very well under control. We've got 95 Republicans and 55 Democrats. And I think we stand a chance to actually improve those numbers this time around. So we're in solid shape, and the Senate's in great shape as well. And we appreciate the leadership of Senator Schwertner over there representing our county. So I'm just going to get into some of my remarks here, and please forgive me because, like I said, I don't usually read from scripts, but I've been thinking about this because I thought I'd give a little history lesson and kind of relate it back to where we are today. So I do want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and serve as your state representative. I've been privileged for the past 28 years to be affiliated with this party that has a glorious past and, in my opinion, a bright future. Our first party platform was adopted in 1856. If you have not read that document, I encourage you to do so. In eloquent brevity, it lays out our party's founding principles, namely to abolish human slavery from our country. Not only was our party successful in leading this charge, but in contrast to the other party, we pioneered the cause for the suffrage of women, opposed Jim Crow laws, opposed the poll tax, opposed segregation, and supported the Civil Rights Act, and spread the message of equal opportunity for all while advocating for limited government, economic opportunity, and self-reliance. And as President Reagan once said, the best social program is a job. Thinking again about the 1856 platform, it is shocking in its modern day relevance as you read what our forebears said about the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the intent of our founding fathers, and the powers of the federal government as it relates to states' rights. I submit that the 1856 delegates would be comfortable in this room here today. A big section of the platform advocates for the admission of Kansas into the Union as a free state. That was a big issue at the time. But it also lists 9 problems that were happening in Kansas, in the Kansas Territory. And I think you'll find it interesting. I'm going to read 6 of the 9. So they complain, our forebears, Republicans, complained about, quote, spurious and pretended legislative, judicial, and executive orders that have been set over them by whose usurped authority, sustained by the military power of the government, tyrannical and unconstitutional laws have been enacted and enforced. The right of the people to keep and bear arms has been infringed. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure has been violated. They have been deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. That the freedom of speech and press has been abridged, and the right to choose their representatives has been made to no effect. That all these things have been done with the knowledge, sanction, and procurement of the present national administration, and that for this high crime against the Constitution, the Union, and humanity, we arraign that administration, the President, his advisors, agents, supporters, apologists, and accessories, either before or after the fact, before the country and before the world. And it is our fixed purpose to bring the actual perpetrators of these atrocious outrages and their accomplishments to sure and punishment thereafter. Your predecessor said in the platform, our first platform, that the maintenance of the principles promulgated in the Declaration of Independence and embodied in the federal Constitution are essential to the preservation of our Republican institutions, and that the federal Constitution, the rights of the states, and the union of the states must and shall be preserved. Do any of those things sound familiar to you that I read? Yeah, okay. So, of course, the great moral scourge of the day was human slavery. And our party was founded for a moral purpose, in word and in deed, to right a great wrong. That is our heritage. Today we face many challenges as a country, and the list of horribles is too long for me to mention in the time allotted. But I'm ever hopeful that with malice toward none and charity toward all, we can lead the way to restore our republic. A great moral concern today is the problem our country has with illegal immigration. The parallels to the moral imperative of ending slavery, I think, are similar. Without question, our federal government, for decades, has failed to secure our borders, has failed to protect the sovereignty of our country, failed to effectively deter transnational criminals, and left our country open to attack from foreign powers and terrorist organizations. Our country has a sovereign right to decide who comes to our country, for what purpose, and for how long. We as citizens have a proper expectation that our immigration laws are enforced, and a well-regulated flow of people and commerce should be the normal state of our border. When we examine the twin issues of immigration and border security, we see clearly the results of what we have today, and they are, in effect, in my opinion, anti-Christian. In Genesis chapter 1:27, we are instructed that man is created in God's image. We cannot deny that all men are created equal, as stated in the Declaration of Independence. And part of the compassion we can show is to put an end to policies that incent immigrants to break the law and create a moral hazard in Americans who participate in this lawlessness. Furthermore, the economic incentive of immigration, illegal immigration, is one in which the parties are not on an equal footing. One does not have free will, and some of these immigrants are trapped in the modern equivalent of slavery. I don't mean to imply that all employers treat illegal aliens like slaves, but it is undeniable that some do. And it's certainly true of the thriving sex trade, the sex slave trade, which thrives in this country. Our failure to have a robust and effective border control policy enables criminal gangs to smuggle immigrants under false pretenses across the border, kidnap them, addict them to drugs, and force them into the sex trade. Most of these people are female, but some are male. The ages of these victims is shockingly low and includes preteens. The criminal gangs in the United States keep them locked up, drugged up, and actively trade them between cities, so the victims don't even know where they are. Imagine if you or a relative was under the threat of death, forced to be addicted to drugs and sold to be raped repeatedly, and then moved in windowless box trucks all the time, not even knowing the language of your victimizers. The fear and destitution and hopelessness must be beyond imagination. Can we as a party or a nation or as moral humans submit to a system that allows this type of depravity to occur? Our failure to address the dehumanizing impact of our immigration system implicates our nation in these detestable crimes. Our weak enforcement policies do not only breed fear among immigrants, but they also breed fear among our citizens. I'll ask you, do you feel safe in the border counties? I know I don't. Do you feel safe in our cities? Criminality in the valley and beyond in the form of murders, kidnappings, and extortion are crimes that do not need to happen in the United States if we would have a border security policy that works. Between October 2011 and January 2014, Texas jails housed over 155,000 illegal aliens at a cost to you, the Texas taxpayer, of $187 million. Williamson County's portion of that in that same time frame was $1.8 million for 2,240 inmates housed. In this last primary that just finished, 2,280 Austin residents voted in the Republican primary in Williamson County. It's a big number. So we have a system that allows people to come in. Now I'm going to tell you something you probably haven't heard. Last week we apprehended in Texas alone over 7,000 people crossing the border illegally. How can our system be so broke that in the preceding 3 weeks we caught over 6,000 people per week for the preceding 3 weeks in Texas? Why is it that no one is seemingly talking about that 65% of these people are from countries other than Mexico? Does it concern you that they come from Syria, Iraq, Iran, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Azerbaijan, Russia, China, and Somalia? Essentially from every continent except Antarctica, only because no one lives there. And last week, we caught a Canadian. Now, granted, he's probably the dumbest Canadian in North America right now. I don't know. But our critics accuse us of being anti-Hispanic, specifically anti-Mexican. And it's more about electoral politics than about truth. But this cannot stand, and we cannot contribute to it. People in our own party who speak in shrill tones play into the hands of our political opponents. And sometimes we fuel, or our associates fuel, these powerful charges of racism. But we know that probably everybody in this room has a history of immigration in their family. And we're not anti-immigrant. Rather, we are pro-law and order. But we recognize that in order to build a civil society with respect for the law, one cannot have their first act on U.S. soil be one of violating the law. So I bring you again to my main theme of looking at the moral ills brought about by our policies. If we are created in God's image, and if we believe in the natural law delineated in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, then aren't we required to love our neighbors as we love ourselves? It's not out of hatred or animus that I want our immigration system reformed and our border really secured, but rather out of love to prevent our fellow humans from suffering the deprivations and injustices of this modern slavery. Please do not misinterpret what I'm saying. I do not see amnesty as the answer, and I do not believe that anyone who enters this country illegally should ever be eligible for citizenship. But living in a border state has its own challenges, and the rest of the country does not see what we see, and I would submit to you that those of us in this room really don't see what's happening as well. So in conclusion, I don't bring you solutions to these problems. I'm sorry, I can't. But as a state lawmaker, I'm proud that Texas has stepped up and allocated over $300 million in direct expenditures to enforce border security. But it's truly a federal problem, and it can't be solved without the president and both houses of the Congress really caring about border security. But I ask you as fellow Republicans and as people of faith, and as the legacy of the Party of Lincoln to remember the human element on both sides of the border. Ending human slavery and the moral ills associated with it in the mid-1800s was not easy, and this journey will not be easy either. But if we root ourselves in compassion for humanity, we can debate this issue on a higher moral plane and win the argument and find solutions that puts America first and honors the principles in the Declaration of Independence and in the U.S. Constitution. Thank you for listening.